There's a lot of money and time put into memorial nowadays. Societies that are coming to terms with an egregious action that happened not too long ago will feel it's very important to create a space, a memorial, to reflect upon what occurred. There is a darker space of memorial where an individual cannot recognize within themselves their own value and their own worth, and they can only access an expression of a memorial of an event that was, as one being a part of a legacy of memorial. And that's sad. Some people, when they undertake to honor a memorial or create a memorial, they do so in order so that nobody forgets what transpired. The spiritualist recognizes that everything that happens is playing out impressions that were already set in motion long ago. And these patterns, they continue to reoccur and reoccur and reoccur, unless individuals are free, and then they have a choice. And they recognize that unless individuals are in a space of freedom, they are not free, and that within the seeds of the collective consciousness, the same events will keep sprouting again and again. Because there's a truth that's not being played intimately. And so if that truth is not being played intimately, there's a void, there's a vacuum, there's a bubble. And that truth needs to be acquired. So malevolent forces will exploit the vacuum and will manifest a lesson that will teach you exactly how not to be. Will teach you the truth from the perspective of the opposite. Think for a moment, the greatest scourge on the earth of the last 100 years. If you think about the era during World War II, I was reading in the paper that there were two parents that named their child Hitler. And the police, the government is seizing the child. They're taking away the child. It's a brutal form of neglect or abuse. Who in this world would aspire to the ideals of this individual after what this individual had imparted to this world? Before this individual came to the world, you had organizations that discriminated. Not malevolent organizations, not organizations that or particularly Aryan or elitist, but standard organizations would say, only these people allowed. Only these people can travel here. Only these people can eat here. And this was normal. This is the way it had been for generations, generations, and generations. This individual comes to this world and manifests great, great, great darkness. Great destruction, great suffering, atrocities. And suddenly, people say, who wants to be like such an individual? It's evident, it's obvious. It's obvious, the darkness. So, the individuals that say, don't discriminate, act honorably, see the dignity and the divinity in each other's eyes. All those lessons that were going on deaf ears within country clubs and hotels and throughout the world made no impression. Such an individual comes to this world and actualizes their darkness to such a severe level that the world says we're disgusting. Who can tolerate it? And so there's an illumination. And so religions began to sanitize their ideals. And so there's a women's movement. Where today more women graduate in the West than men. And there's a civil rights movement that happened relatively in history not so long ago, but the concept of a typical individual in this generation would look at the notion of there needing to be a civil rights movement and think of it as being completely absurd and backward. And this was 50, 60 years ago. It's a blink of the eye. In the time of the annals of history on this planet, an individual came and exemplified such darkness, and the world took a quantum leap and said, who wants to be like that individual? Who wants to embody those ideals? And so we learn from darkness. We learn from darkness, so we needn't ever learn from darkness again. We learn from the void, so there needn't ever be a void again. We can recognize the sanctity of each. Each can broadcast their individualized scope and schema of truth for all to revel in. And we have memorials. But the memorial is not in order to say, this happened. Because if the memorials are just there to tell you this happened, then it will certainly happen again. The memorial, a true memorial, needs to recognize the lesson that was imparted. If the lesson was ugly, then the lesson has to be, what did this event lack? What was the truth? You know, the mystics believe that the event that happened, the tragedy that happened, continues to happen. That moment continues to play over and over and over again. The pain and savagery continue to happen over and over again. It continues to happen over and over again until the cycle is broken. The cycle is broken when we transcend the bonds of the darkness of that chain. As we do that, we impart the solution to the space that keeps playing over and over again. And we teach that space music of an illuminated future. So they needn't be so very primitive. And when we do that, then the poison of that space no longer spews into our each and every now. You know, this world has no shortage of tragedy and misbehavior. You know, if something horrible, something horrendous happened to your brother, that happened 2,000 years ago, you say, well, you know, it's 2,000 years ago. Get over it. Or do you say, no, he's my brother. I miss him. His pain is there. He's crying out to me. The moment keeps replaying. Pain, calling out, keeps replaying time and time again. And I miss him. He's dear to me. You just say you can't live that way. Who could live that way? No one could live that way. That's why you have to teach it. The music of illuminated future. It's seeking comfort. The voice that rages deep, deep, deep within, calling for retribution, is seeking comfort. It's seeking a message. We're here. The future is bright. It's okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be better. More than you imagine. We heal the wounds of the past by teaching them the illuminated future. The wounds of the past will never erupt. And in that space, we recognize that even the greatest tyrant of our time imparted great light by exhibiting exactly the opposite. And if we can recognize that from the greatest tyrant, exhibiting the opposite had brought a quantum leap in evolution to our space in being far less primitive, then we can certainly learn that lesson from every man that's walked this plane. And in that space, and we understand that forgiveness is a complete facade. There are only those that are benefiting from benevolence, that recognize it, and those that are benefiting, they have now awoken to see it.